What's up, everybody? This is the Booch, and welcome to episode 17 of the Boochcast reviews, Darkside of the 90s. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, I am joined once again by the one, the only, the broke soulless ginger, Mr. Zack Scott.
What's up, dude? That's yes, just be the broke soulless ginger, Zack Scott. Generally speaking, I'm not that broke. Anything I have to say, I enjoyed this Darkside of the 90s, episode 16.
17.
Oops. Apparently I can't count today. Oh well.
Yeah. He was supposed to be in class today, but he decided to call out sick. Clearly he needs to not do that anymore. But I had to throw a little ball bust at Zach because before we get into this episode, I gotta adjust this.
Don't.
You notice,
damn you,
Zach, I can't not talk about this. Put the shirt down. Put the shirt down. Quit being a baby. Seriously.
No.
Zach, stop. Okay? Seriously. You can't go from the beard to this and we not explain it. It's like when I got different glasses. Okay? If we don't address this, they're not going to listen to a word we have to say for the next however long this video goes. Okay? They won't listen to a word we're saying if we don't address it right off the bat. Yes, he clean shaved today, and it was something we were talking about actually on the phone before he came over here. And here's the thing. And I give Zach a lot of shit. We're friends. We ball bust. But I'm being honest. And comment below if you agree or disagree. I think he looks better this way. Like, seriously. Zach, even for all the shit I give him, for all the shit the group gives him, he is actually a relatively good-looking guy. No homo. He's a good-looking guy. And by the way, for anybody out there that's mad that I'm saying no homo, that's a standard straight man thing. It's a guy thing. Live with it.
You're not my type.
No, you're not mine either.
There we go.
Okay? I don't do redheads. So anyway, we were talking about it, and when he's clean shaven, when he combs the hair back, when he dresses a certain way, he looks good. Like, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The fact that I look the way I look, like, I know how I look, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not delusional. I know I've got the belly. I know I got the bald head. Okay, I'm aware of this. I'm actually, trying to lose weight, which I know looks weird because I got a soda next to me, but this is actually the first one I've had in, like, a week. Like, I literally used to drink these several a day. I'm down to, like, 1 or 2 a week. And usually when I drink them, it's when I'm hanging out with Zach. So, other than that, I don't really drink a lot of soda anymore. I'm usually a water guy. In fact, let me take a little break here. This right here is what I normally drink. And it's water mixed with Mio. Mio Energy. Caffeine and B vitamins. By the way, Mio, if you're watching this, I am open to talking about sponsorship. Because I am drinking this heavily. But I also know, despite the way I look, the fact that I get more pussy than him baffles me. Because if you look at him, you look at me and how good looking he is and how I look, you would expect him to get more pussy than me. But he doesn't. It's because he likes to have a beard, even though he does not look good with the beard.
I like my beard.
He likes the beard. I personally don't think it's good. I think he looks better this way, and I like it. It's because it shows that he's a relatively good-looking guy, and I like it. I think girls would be more attracted to this. Ladies, I think you would be more attracted to this. Sure, he has a house full of roommates. Sure, he washes dishes, but he gets paid good money to do it. So, it's not like he's a dishwasher and he's making minimum wage. He's a dishwasher. He can still pay his bills and everything else. So, I think if he looked like this, you ladies might be able to overlook the dishwasher occupation and want to jump his bones. Now, if you agree, comment below. If you disagree, comment below. And for anybody commenting below going, Booch, you're not exactly good looking, I literally just mentioned that. So that means you're not paying attention. Okay? I know that I'm aware. I get more pussy because I'm famous. That's really what it is. And I have good dick. But anyway, that's not why we're here. That's not why we're here. I just wanted to address that right off the bat so you will know that he's clean shaven for this one. This week we're talking about something even more interesting and something that I found to be great. This is a great episode. Black Sitcoms Last Laugh.
Yep.
We're going to be taking a look at some 90s sitcoms that was basically primarily featured a lot of black people. And I will say the majority of the ones mentioned here, I have seen.
Yes.
and are incredibly entertaining.
Yeah, they are entertaining.
So even though the target audience was black people, they got at least 2 white fans right here. In the 90s, black comedy on TV is enjoying a moment. The 90s was a beautiful golden age for black people on TV. There was a seismic shift in sitcoms, dramas, or any kind of projects coming from people of color. From The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, to Martin, to In Living Color, to Living Single, to Moesha, In the House, Sister Sister, and The Jamie Foxx Show. It was television written and produced by black artists that centered black characters and life experiences in ways many Americans had never seen. That's because before the 90s, the few black sitcoms on TV were written and produced almost exclusively by white people. But that landscape changes with the arrival of prolific TV producer Norman Lear. Despite being white, he was the pioneer of black television. Now again, this goes back to the hip-hop East Coast, West Coast thing. And this is something we've already discussed this, so I'll go briefly into it. They talked about how, hip-hop is black music, produced by black people, but yet the guys who helped bring it to the mainstream were 2 Jewish guys who made Source Magazine.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, you gotta think about that, Even though, yes, there's black people involved, there's black hands on it, and there's black talent coming through, in a way, there are still white people that are helping out. And it's a good thing. Because, like I said, there's been, primarily, everything's written by white people, everyone's produced by white people are clearly in the door. Yep. So sometimes you need somebody on the inside to help you raise the platform up. So there's nothing wrong with that. Like back then, there was no Tyler Perry yet.
No.
Who now has his own lot and can do more black produced stuff and bringing people up to his level. And even before Tyler Perry got that lot, he had to play ball a little bit. Sometimes you do what you gotta do to get ahead, and then once you're in a position of power, you can bring other people up.
Yes, that's very, very true. I like him as Medea.
When the socially conscious and controversial sitcom All in the Family becomes a rating success, Lear earns the freedom to spin off other progressive sitcoms built around black characters. So again, he had to prove himself with one show, and then was able to do his own thing. And although, let's be honest though, All in the Family was a great fucking show. Yes. Like, that show would not exist today, but had great moments, great stories, great jokes. Yeah. Nobody was butthurt from them. But here's the thing. The reason Archie Bunker worked so well is because Archie Bunker was a conservative.
Yes.
But the actor Dan Carroll who played him was a Democrat.
Really?
Yes. Dan Carroll, the actor who played Archie Bunker, was very much a Democrat. He voted on the left. He wasn't an insane leftist like the ones we have today. He was like a normal leftist, if that makes sense.
Yes.
He voted Democrat, but he wasn't like a psycho about it. He just had his opinions and he voted. But he also played Archie Bunker. And he wasn't playing him like an ignorant bigot. He was playing him like a normal person with conservative values. Yeah. Because Archie had a way of talking, but he wasn't a bad person. And the best example of that, and it's going to go into the spinoff thing here, so I'll tell this story. Because it's one of my favorite moments on All in the Family. Because it's a moment where Archie Bunker does something racist and didn't mean to. So anyway, they're at this wedding or wedding party, like a reception thing. And there's this, I think it's an engagement party. And, George Jefferson, because that's where the Jeffersons came from. They were on All in the Family. And it was like, Jefferson's wife, I think it was Wheezy. Wheezy, yeah. She and Edith were very good friends. The best of friends. So because of that, Archie and George had to hang out a lot. And they would call each other Bunker and Jefferson. Now, they didn't like each other. But you had Archie, who was racist towards black people. You had Jefferson, who was racist towards white people. So their hatred made them friends later on. Like, they were the ones that mutually agreed, stay on your own side of the neighborhood. Their racism made them friends, which is fucking hilarious.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So anyway, at one point, Mrs. Jefferson, George Jefferson's mom, is at the engagement party because George Jefferson's son is getting married. there's a moment where they meet the girl he's engaged to. Now, George Jefferson's son is obviously black. Mm-hmm. The girl he's engaged to is black. Mm-hmm. But the black girl has a white dad. So she's mixed. And there's a moment where Archie's like, wait a minute. He goes up to George Jefferson's son, who gets along with. He goes, wait a minute. Are you telling me your father hasn't met that man? Mm-hmm. He goes, no, I'm about to introduce him right now. He goes, this I gotta see. You see Archie like, oh, I gotta see this shit. And George just like, fucking like, what the hell? He's like, you're white. He goes, yeah, and you're black. So as the episode progresses on, at one point, the grandma comes over, and George, you know George, he is always like moody and mean to everybody. So he starts yelling at his mom, like she's being annoying. So his mom starts crying, going, you don't have to talk to me that way. And Archie's trying to stand up for her, and this is what he says. That was extremely racist, but Archie didn't know it. He said, come on there, Jeff, that's not a nice thing to do, talking that way to your mammy there. But he said mammy. And apparently it's not good. And she goes, excuse me, I am not his mammy, I'm his mother. And if you got anything to say to me, you will address me as Mrs. Jefferson. And you see Archie going, oh, geez, Mrs. Jefferson, I didn't mean nothing by it. And she goes, oh, whatever. She just yells at him and tells him to go away and storms out. And Weezy's like, what happened? George goes, he called her mammy, and Weezy went, oh, Lord. Weezy, because Weezy knows Archie well enough by now. So she just went, oh, crap, here we go. And Archie's like, what? I didn't know I was doing anything wrong. I thought all colored people called their mothers mammy. George puts his head down, he goes, well, I did, Jefferson. Sammy Davis called his mother mammy for years. And he walks out. But he literally thought that was a slang term for grandparents. And to be honest, up until I saw that episode, I thought the same thing. Now, just to be clear, I've never called any black woman mammy ever. I never felt a close enough relationship with any of my black friends where I could say that. Just because how I was raised, I would always say Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Johnson, Mrs. Knox. I would always say Mrs. to everybody. I was like, Mr., Mrs., or Sir and Ma'am. I never got to a point where I felt comfortable giving any relative nicknames. But once I learned that, I was like, okay, never say that. Nope. But it was funny because RC said something racist. This is one of the rare times where he wasn't trying to be. He was trying to do the right thing. He's basically trying to tell George, don't talk to your mother like that. That's disrespectful. But the word that came out ended up killing the whole thing. And that's another example again where look at the context in which something is being said. And then there's a moment towards the end where everything's going normal and George is like, Bunker, what's the world coming to? He goes, I don't know, Jefferson. All I can tell you is, here's to yesterday. And they cheer, and they just start drinking. Now, All in the Family spun off into the Jeffersons. Then there was also a sitcom called Maude, which I never heard of.
Me neither.
But that spun off into what we know as Good Times. Which basically was, one of the key things there. They had the Jeffersons, and then you had Good Times.
Yes.
Great black sitcoms.
Yes.
They did address black issues from time to time. The only problem is it was all white people writing those shows. Yeah. Now, here's the interesting thing. And this gets I'll probably talk about this in later episodes or later in the Dark Side of Comedy. This gets brought up. There's nothing wrong with having white people writing on a black sitcom. But in order to explain the black experience, you do need to have black writers in there. It's like the same thing with the Source people. They founded the magazine. They knew their shit when it came to hip-hop, but they were still smart enough to hire black reporters to talk about what's going on in the black community. Because here's the thing. You can understand black people from an objective standpoint if you're white. But you can't fully understand what it's like unless you're black. You can't fully understand it. Yeah. And I'm smart enough to know that. Now, I've hung around enough, I said this before, I'll say it again. I've hung around enough black people to have an understanding of black culture. There's certain things where I can go, and based on my life, I know this to be true, that to be false, this to be true, that to be false, from what I've seen. But I'm never going to sit here and pretend that I understand the struggle of black people. I don't. I'm never going to.
Me neither.
And it's only because I'm not black. I can learn as much as I want. And if black people are willing to answer questions and educate, I'm open to listening.
Very true.
But I know that I'll never fully understand it no matter what. But I can get as close to it as possible, and I can damn sure try. And notice that I said black people educating me. I don't want no white liberals trying to teach me shit. Get the fuck away from me. Fuck off forever. I hate you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
But if black people want to explain it to me, I'll listen to them. So by 1974, 3 of the nation's top 10 sitcoms are Norman Lear's show starring black casts. 3 of the top 10 are there. The other one being Sanford and Son, which of course were Red Fox and all that. Elizabeth! I'll be honest, I never watched Sanford and Son, so I can't say too much about it. Good Times, I saw maybe a couple scenes.
Yeah.
And the Jeffersons, I never watched.
Yeah.
I just know their theme song.
Yeah.
They were funny, but also talked about what it was like to live in America as a black person in the 70s, as I mentioned before. It talked about this is black life in the 70s. And the key word, 70s.
70s.
So any of you new age people out there, if you decide to watch this on a streaming service, remember the setting. 70s.
The 70s.
Okay? It's not going to be politically correct.
Nope.
And there's going to be moments where black people are not portrayed positively. Again, it's the 70s.
70s.
Bear that in mind. But while television is broadcast in living color, now this is a playoff of the show because now they're starting to, this is when television went from black and white to color. So these Lear sitcoms are still black and white, as in black actors being told what to say by white writers.
Yes.
So that's the issue. So even though TV went to color, that's the scenario, that's the problem. There's no black people in here to really tell the story. That's why a lot of times when you see, you know, the black actors on the show telling certain jokes, they don't sound as authentic because it's a white guy writing them. And he's putting his perspective on how he thinks black people talk. Yes. Even though you need a black person to explain how black people talk.
Yeah.
That's the best way to explain it. It definitely affected the show in the sense that you could tell the actors were saying things that black people wouldn't normally say. Like Penny telling JJ, you look like a string of spaghetti with a little meatball on top. Yeah, no, I've been around black people long enough. No black person has ever fucking said that.
No.
Never fucking said that. Ever. Ever in my life. As opposed to on Martin, when he would tell Pam, your hair is so nappy, Wilson couldn't pick it. That's how you can tell the difference between a black written sitcom and a white written sitcom. Because that is something a black person would say in an argument with a black girl.
Yeah.
Is talking about nappy hair. So that's a good thing. Now again, that was me quoting something from the show. Okay? Now, actor John Amos. Most people know him as a legendary actor. For example, we talked about Coming to America. He was Mr. McDowell. If you need a reference on who he is. He was the guy that was Lisa's father. The guy that ran the McDowell's restaurant. And also had the balls to tell the king of another country, you say one more thing about my daughter, I'm going to break my foot off in your royal ass. The balls you have to say that to a king. Thank God they weren't in Zamunda. It'd have been to the lions with you.
The lions.
Now, John Amos, he's fired from Good Times after frequently fighting with the writing staff over the show's caricature-rated portrayal of its black characters. They didn't like the way black people were being portrayed on the show. They felt they should be portrayed better. He argued with the writing staff constantly, and he was fired. Yeah. And the reason he was fired was because he didn't have the same type of power and pull that other people normally have on a sitcom when they're fighting somebody. Because apparently he didn't have that kind of creative control of the show. Because the show was called Good Times. Yeah. It wasn't called the John Amos Show.
Yeah, true.
If it was called the John Amos Show, he'd have more power.
Yeah.
If your that's a key thing to remember. If your name is not in the title of the sitcom, unless you got a dedicated fan base, you hold no power on that sitcom.
No power at all.
Unless you are extremely popular, you can be replaced.
True.
And Amos is not the only one upset. As Lear begins work on the Jeffersons, he gets a visit from an organization looking to dismantle white power. The Nation of Islam, who want to see a sitcom that doesn't show black people living in the ghetto. This is why George and Wheezy, as I mentioned before, moved on up to the deluxe apartment in the sky. It showed black people in a better living environment, but by 1984, America had changed and the show had lost its luster. So by the 80s, this show kind of died out. But that's why they put them in the upscale apartment. The Nation of Islam demanded this.
Yeah.
Now, the civil rights gains of the 60s and 70s are helped along by massive economic growth in the 1980s. Black people became part of the middle class. So right around the 80s, black people can now be considered part of the middle class. Okay. There are some black people that are still poor, but there's not as many as there were in the 60s and 70s. Yeah. So in the 80s, they're starting to get economic growth. There's now a new class of black professionals, entrepreneurs, and black kids in private schools. So now it's like black people becoming more sophisticated because they're coming into more money as the economic growth comes, but also the equality. Now black people are have more rights than they did before. They're able to walk into a job and be able to be hired if they have the qualifications. Yeah. And if they work hard and produce, they can be promoted and go up the corporate ladder. In the 80s, it was more of a realistic goal that could be done. And one sitcom turns that shift the demographics into its biggest hit of the decade, The Cosby Show. Yes. So they tapped into that. Because Cosby, in real life, was an educated man, graduated from Temple University. His wife, she graduated as a psychologist, and she had a 3.0 grade point average. So Bill Cosby said if you ask her a question, she can give you at least an 85 answer. He said, I went from Temple University with a degree in psychology, but also a minor in physical education. So he said, so if I had a child that had temper tantrums, I would just tell him to take a lap. And that would be his joke. That was a joke he wrote. Now, while the show was a departure from many of the stereotypical black sitcoms in the 1970s, the very colorblindness of The Cosby Show raised its own concerns. People hated that it ignored issues of the black poor. Didn't talk about social justice issues of the time. No drama on the show. The shift changed, though, when The Cosby Show spinned off into A Different World. Okay, before I get to A Different World, this is a question that I need to have answered.
What?
That doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Why is it you can do a show about black people living in the ghetto, living in the projects, being poor, and people get mad because it's a bad stereotype? Then you put black people in a situation where they're educated, they speak proper grammar, they're intelligent, they can rise above the ghetto if they work hard enough, but then you get mad when they don't talk about the poor.
Sounds like a hypocrite to me.
That doesn't make any fucking sense.
It doesn't.
You literally just complained that this thing focuses too much on poor black people. Now you got upper class black people and you're pissed? The fuck? Why can't a show just entertain? Not everything has to have a political fucking message. Not everything has to address the world. Sometimes you can have something that's an escape from the world. Not everybody wants to have politics and social justice issues thrown into their entertainment. Now, if you can throw it in there in a way to make it funny and entertaining as well as informative, go right ahead. But it doesn't have to be. Some people watch TV to escape the real world. Yes. Because we have a hard enough time dealing with the real world as it is. That's why most of the time when you hear me talk about shit like this, you notice it's only on the podcast? Yes. Videos and the audio podcast that we do? Come see me do stand-up. I don't talk about none of this shit. Nope. And if I did, it would have to be something that affected me directly. It would have to be done in a way where I can make it funny. Because when I'm on stage doing comedy, my first, second, third, fourth, and fifth concern is making people laugh. Once I figure that out, then I can decide what topics to throw in. But no matter what I'm talking about, my goal is to be funny. Funny first, then informative. You gotta make people laugh and then make them think. If you're just making them think and you're not making them laugh, then you're not a comic. You're not doing your job. True. If I go to a comedy show, I want to laugh. I don't want to go to a fucking protest. If I want to go to a protest, I'll go stand outside the city and watch everybody fucking march. If I want politics, I'll stay at home and turn on the news. I go to a comedy club, I want to laugh.
I want to laugh.
Talk about whatever you want, but make me laugh.
Yes. That's what you're there to do.
That fucking irritates me. You say you want black people portrayed better, they're portrayed better, now you're like, they're forgetting about the poor. But A Different World put the focus on the younger generation of black people, and that younger generation is increasingly obsessed with hip-hop. What began as a uniquely American underground music genre has expanded out of the black community and into the mainstream, which we already talked about before.
Yes.
But one thing I want to say right now is what I liked about A Different World, and because I've seen the whole show.
Yeah.
And again, this is before you could binge watch. I literally watched it on TV. I loved it because it talked about a lot of issues. It addressed a lot of things. And it also was very entertaining.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, I like the Dwayne Whitley story was great. Because Whitley was this, like, stuck-up, bougie, full of herself girl who talked with a high voice. Yeah. Dwayne. And then eventually, she later became a nicer person. Then you had Dwayne, who was a fool and a crazy guy with the flip-up sunglasses and everything, who later became a computer genius and a teacher. And then you see some of the, like, Sinbad was part of that show.
Yeah, God, whatever happened to him?
He's still doing comedy. He's just not around as much. He's out there. He has occasional stand-up shows. And then, of course, you had Jada Pinkett was in there towards the end. This is before she went bald and psycho and toxic. And you know what was funny? You know who else made a cameo appearance on the show and played an ex-boyfriend of Jada?
Will Smith.
No.
Who?
Tupac.
I forgot about that.
Fucking Tupac was on the show.
Rest in peace, Tupac.
Yes, but that's the thing, because that was what a lot of people stand around. They think that Jada, deep down, was in love with Tupac, even though the relationship was platonic when they were alive.
Yeah.
And she, deep down, she wishes she was with Tupac, and she's now with Will Smith, which is funny because Chris Rock did a bit about marriage, and he said, the number one reason your woman is mad at you, fellas, the number one reason your woman is pissed the fuck off, because you ain't her first choice. And Will Smith was not her first choice. She settled for Will when she realized all Tupac wanted was to be her friend. And that's why she's in the toxic relationship she's in now. And I remember there was one episode, though, that kind of bugged me. Only because I wish the ending had been different. There was an episode with this guy who I think was trying to be a hip-hop artist or whatever. But he was abusive toward his girlfriend. Now, they never actually showed him punching her or anything like that. They never showed that on camera. But he, like, shoved her once or whatever, which led to that. And they just cut to black and come back from commercial. And at one point, she's wearing sunglasses because she's got this big-ass black eye. Yeah. Like, really fucking bad. Now, at one point, they're hearing rumors around that he has anger problems. So Dwayne comes up and says, look, man, if you need help, I know some people you can call that can help you out. And he didn't want the help. He was stubborn. They get to the end of the episode. And he's trying to get his girlfriend to take him back. She won't take him back. She's like, who's telling you I'm bad for you? Your friends? And she goes, no, the mirror. And she takes the sunglasses off. And you see that big-ass black eye. And for a brief moment, he has that look on his face like, oh my God. But then all of a sudden, he comes back into like, this is ridiculous. We can get back together. And then a bunch of people come out and basically surround him. And basically tell him, if you don't get the fuck out of here, we're all going to beat your ass. And the guy ends up leaving. Now, apparently he redeems himself later, but they still give him shit over it. Yeah. But here's how I wish that episode would have ended. The second he saw the black eye, he freaked out. Like, oh my God, what have I done? Like, that's that, like, seeing that black eye wakes him up to realize, oh my God, what am I doing? What have I done? Yeah. You see scenarios like that when people do horrible things and they realize, what have I, like, you see it in movies, like, all the time. Yeah. Like, what have I done? I can't believe I did this. And then there's a moment where everybody comes out, he kind of puts his hands up and says, I'm not going to do anything. And then I would like to see him go over to Dwayne and say, hey, does that offer to get some help still stand? He goes, yeah, sure. And then he goes and gets help. Because that's a thing I wish they would show more of. Now, look, obviously, I do not endorse domestic violence in any way, shape, or form. No. Not a fan of it. Me neither. Okay? I've always said, unless it's in self-defense, don't swing at somebody. That's always been my rule. And obviously, in that episode, that lady did nothing physical to warrant any of that. This is a guy clearly being abusive. I'm aware of that. But I wish they could show people getting over it, because at least they can show, hey, there's a path to redemption. Yes. Like, here's why. With drug addicts, they always show a path to redemption. Yeah. With alcoholics, they always show a path to redemption. And you can't tell me there's no drug addicts and alcoholics that did some really bad, borderline, unforgivable, fucked up shit when they were high or drunk. Yes. But then they get sober and people forgive them. I feel like with people with anger problems and violent anger problems, the same can be done. Like people say, if he hits you once, he'll hit you again. Yeah, if he's untreated. If you just ignore it, then yeah. But if you get him help, or try to get him help, or say, hey, I can't be with you until you get your anger under control, and if he loves you enough, or she loves you enough, if the woman's abusive, because there are women who are physically abusive in relationships, don't think it's just the guys, then you can go get help. That should motivate you enough to go get help. Like if you're a drug addict or alcoholic, and you basically take the child away and say, I don't want you around this child until you get cleaned up. And if you love your child enough, you go and get clean. You prove you're clean, you're sober, you're off the shit. Kid. Same thing.
Yep. Agreed.
Hey, and if he's able to redeem himself and get his anger under control, because I've seen it happen. How many times on talk shows have we seen guys with anger problems that go to some management therapy class, come back 3 months later, they're the most loving husbands in the world?
A lot.
We've seen it. Hell, Steve Wilkos, Mr. Wilkos, had a thing like that, where he basically put this guy through a boot camp thing, had him go to his boss and apologize for his behavior to help him get his job back. He apologized to his wife, even when his wife slapped him in the face. He said, I deserve that. And eventually they were able to redeem themselves, and, Steve Wilkos for a while became like his coach. And he said, I hope I never have to come back here again. He goes, trust me, man, next time you come back, barbecue. We're going to throw a barbecue. We're going to invite you. He goes, I'm looking forward to that. And it turned his life around. I just wish they would show more of that and show, look, domestic violence is wrong, but people can change. I wish they would show more of that. Either way, great episode, but I would have preferred that ending personally. Outside of that, I love the show. Yeah. The whole thing with where Whitley had to choose between a guy who was about to be senator and Dwayne, and chooses Dwayne, and the wedding and all that, and then they had their honeymoon in L.A. and the riots took place, and how crazy that was. And again, they found a way to put a comedic spin on it while also addressing the problem. Yeah. It was great. It talked about major issues. And it talked about all those things, but also was entertaining. And lasted a very long time. It addressed racism in a big way, but it addressed it on both sides of the fence. There was one episode, and I'm going to go off on another tangent, and I don't want to say who starred in this, because I know a lot of people are going to automatically point fingers at this guy, even though he doesn't have a racist bone in his body, but he's very conservative. Or should I say the name?
Go ahead. No, it.
Dean Cain was in this episode. And Dean Cain is, he's a conservative, but he also has very liberal viewpoints. If you talk to him, he's one of the most level-headed people on the planet. He was a Trump guy, or is a Trump guy, but had a level head about it, which some Trump people do. Dean kind of walks over, and they're from a rival school, and there's a college game playing, and this guy Ron, who's black, is trying to place a betting money, saying that they'll lose. They're like, all right, you're on. And here's where you can tell there's some racism. Dean Cain's walking away, but one of his friends, who's heavily racist, says things like, I hate it when they butcher the anthem. Which is his way of kind of saying black people shouldn't sing the national anthem. It was like an offhanded comment. Ron kind of heard it, but he ignored it. He's like, whatever. Then, towards the end, they're walking out. They're pissed because Dean's team lost. They lost the game. So they're pissed off, but they still hand Ron the money they owe him. All right, fine, we'll pay you. And they're walking away. They're pissed off, but they're walking away. But then Ron says something that starts the whole thing. He says, y'all would have won if you had a few brothers on your team. Which pissed them the fuck off. First of all, it pissed off the one guy because he's heavily racist, but it pissed off Dean Cain because he's like, I'm white and I'm a football player and you're saying I can't play as well as black people? He's like, so you're saying white people can't play as well as black people? And Ron gets in his face and talks about why black people are better. Basically trying to punk him out. So they snap, grab the guy, pull out spray paint, and they're about to spray paint the N-word on the hood of his car. Dwayne comes over, gets in there, next thing you know, a big fight breaks out. Cop comes by, breaks the whole thing up, locks them in a jail cell. And in that jail cell, they basically work out their differences. And the cop basically makes both of them see the error of their ways. Like, hey, you shouldn't judge black people by their cover. The other guy should have no business spray painting out on his car. And obviously, because of the damage, they were at fault they had to pay for it. They ruled in favor of that. They gave him a fine. But they also looked at Ron and said, oh, so you don't see your fault in this at all. Because what are you talking about? He goes, if they had a few more brothers on their team, you didn't think that was a wrong statement? And then, of course, Dwayne's like, what do you know? He goes, oh, I get it. Because I'm white and I'm a cop, I'm automatically racist, aren't I? He goes, probably. He goes, I could be a card-carrying member of the Klan. He goes, you never know. And he goes, or maybe I marched with Dr. King. You don't know. You don't want people to judge you. I suggest you reserve your judgment as well. And then they both kind of realize they shouldn't judge people. So they kind of bury the hatchet. And not only do they have to pay a fine, but they all end up doing community service. So they had to come back to the campus and all do community service. And they're coming back to bright and early tomorrow. So now they're walking out, and they're kind of like, not being friends, but kind of realizing they were all wrong. Then they come over and they realize somebody had come by and spray painted the rest of the N-word on the car. And they just all look at it. They kind of look at each other and go, well, guess we'll see you guys tomorrow, huh? Like, yeah, see you tomorrow. And they kind of left it at that. But it's one of those heartwarming episodes. Again, that's where they address racism and everything, talked about a lot of things, but A Different World was, like I said, if you have the opportunity to watch it, I think it's on HBO Max. Yeah. A lot of the black sitcoms that we're going to talk about, they're on HBO Max. It's a great show. Really is. Like, regardless of your skin color, it's great. In fact, Marissa Tomei was in the first season. I couldn't figure out why she wasn't in season 2, but I think maybe it's because her acting career took off, like her movie career. Yeah. I'm assuming that's the reason. But that's things I learned when watching that. Now, top rap artists like Tone Loc and Kid and Play top the charts. More than just a new kind of music, the golden age of hip-hop spreads to all corners of popular culture. From Fruity Pebbles commercials to the first sitcom built around a hip-hop star. So obviously they talk about Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble are doing hip-hop or trying to rap a little bit while promoting Fruity Pebbles. So that was like a big deal back then. And then, of course, in September of 1990, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air hits the air. Will Smith was one of the top rappers at the time, and the first one to win a Grammy in the hip-hop category. So he won the first Grammy ever given to a rap artist, was Will Smith. While hip-hop has many powerful black producers, when it jumps over to TV, the network execs put white producers in charge. At least at first. The first season was a traditional sitcom, but then in season 2, Will started getting even more popular and was able to get an executive producer credit. With that, they're able to hire more black writers, more producers, and that is when the show took off because it actually reflected a more intimate black perspective as well. And it's the weird thing, when you watch it, I've seen a couple episodes of the first season and other seasons after it, you notice the first season is heavily different. There's a whole different vibe to the entire thing. There really is. Like, it's awkward. Like, how stuck up everybody is, how weird everybody behaves. It's like, obviously back then it wasn't really weird, but when you look at it through hindsight, when you can see that, when you binge watch the seasons, you see how much it changed. And again, it was Will Smith didn't have that much power at the time. Like, he had power in hip-hop, he wasn't a full-blown, actor like he is today. Yeah. That's when he's able to hire more black people, and then again, once you put the black flavor on it, it's able to better explain black culture. Like they show Carlton and a gang. But he makes that bet with Carlton that you can't be able to last long in Compton. And then all of a sudden, he goes from being awkward and uncomfortable. Next thing you know, he's wearing hip-hop clothes and he's C-Note. And all the guys that are in this apartment are like, hey, how do we diversify these bonds again? He goes, I told you. Go get yourself a Roth IRA, man. How many times I gotta tell you? Sorry, C-Note. Like, it's just, it's fun. Like, Carlton, next thing you know, he's practically running the ghetto. And won the bet against Will. Because the only reason Carlton didn't last a day was because Will Smith eventually pulled him out of there. And then they started looking at Will like maybe he's the seller. Like, maybe he's selling out. He's like, my brother, you want to take this outside? And then they go back to the house, and then Carlton's like, well, why did you come and save me? He's like, admit it, Will. You like me. He goes, no, I don't. He goes, admit it, Will. You can't live without me. You love me. He's like, you want to take this outside? Then you got Will Smith growing up without a dad, which is another aspect of black culture, unfortunately. A lot of times there's single mothers taken care of. And Will has that emotional moment that everyone remembers where he goes, how come he don't want me, man? Like, that's... Which, by the way, was the moment James Avery respected Will as an actor. Because before that, Will was being the buffoon and everything, and James Avery was trying to make him a solid actor. Because that's what James Avery was. Who, by the way, for all that don't know, that's Uncle Phil. He was a real legit like actor. Yeah. He believed in the craft. And he didn't like that Will in the beginning had no respect for it. So he would say, stop all that. Watch me. Act around me. I'm in the scene with you. So then he said that, and he was trying to impress Uncle Phil. Because Will had that desire to get his approval as an actor. And that was the episode where he got it. Like, as he's hugging him, that scene where the hat comes off, and he's hugging him, he's crying, and it zooms in on that statue. What you can't hear is James Avery during that is whispering in Will Smith's ear. And he whispered in his ear, that's fucking acting. He said, now you're being an actor. Now you're showing depth to your acting abilities. Because that scene, no one's forgotten it. No. It's one of the most classic sitcom moments is Will Smith having that rant. You know, I learned how to shave. I learned how to fight without him. I had 14 great birthdays without him. He never even sent me a damn card. To hell with him!
Yeah, that's true.
I didn't need him then. I don't need him now.
No, he does not.
He's like, you know what, Uncle Phil? I'm going to get through college without him. I'm going to get a great job without him. I'm going to marry me a beautiful honey. I'm going to have me a whole bunch of kids. I'll be a better father than he ever was. And I sure as hell don't need him for that, because ain't a damn thing he could ever teach me about how to love my kids. And you see even James Avery, like, fucking tears, man. You're watching that in fucking tears. I don't care who you are. Even if you come from a two-parent household and you're white, that should make you cry. That was amazing acting. And it was beautiful, you know? And then Carlton was being called a sellout because his family's rich. Like, he was trying to pledge into this black fraternity and did everything they wanted him to do. But there's another example, it goes back to the thing about the Cosby Show. Apparently, there's some, when they get too rich or too successful, they think, oh, you ain't black. Like, being black means you have to be broke. Like, being black means you have to be ghetto. Like, being black means you have to be this.
Bullshit.
And it is. Like, he goes, look, I'm jumping the same hurdles and going through the same stuff as you. And when Uncle Phil got offended, he's like, I work hard to provide a life for my family, to get my family out of the projects. And somehow, that's something I'm supposed to be ashamed of? Wanting a better life for my family? It's like that old saying, people only like you when you're struggling with them. But once you get to the top, they don't like you no more. They're like, oh, you forgot where you came from. Oh, I know where I came from. I don't want to go back.
True.
That's a lot of people. Even Steve Harvey was like, you got out the hood. He goes, yeah, bye.
See ya.
I might come and visit, but I ain't coming to stay. That's the thing. You want to get out of that area.
True. You
got to remember where you came from, but it doesn't mean that you owe where you came from anything.
Yep.
You owe your family. That's who you owe. That's who you owe at the end of the day. Now, if you want to go back to where you came from and change the inner city, change it. I'm not saying you're not allowed to, but don't feel like everybody has to. So I'm saying, that was annoying because he said, oh, you a preppy sellout. He's like, no, you're the real sellout because you talk about being black, you don't even know what that is. You have to be black and behave this way. And then people say that, and then you get mad when that's the stereotype on TV. That's the thing that's always bothered me. If you're saying that doing this makes you black, and then you see it on TV, you can't get pissed that it's on TV. Because you literally are defining what being black is. And it's something that has always bugged the crap out of me. And then, of course, there was the getting racially profiled because they were driving an expensive car and the cops thought they stole it.
Yeah, I remember that scene.
Yeah.
Partner.
Yeah. That part when they came in, because the guy told them, hey, drive my car up here. And Carlton was ignorant to all of it because he never really experienced that. So he's thinking, oh, next time I bring a map, I won't have this problem. Will's like, oh, you're going to have this problem again. Trust me. And that's when it finally sank in for him that being black was why they got pulled over. They were black, driving an expensive car, so they must have stolen it, not knowing that it was his legal partner's son and nephew, and that they came to bail them out and how embarrassed they were.
Yep.
And Uncle Phil laying down the fucking law. And that scene's also really, really crazy.
Yeah.
So that was another one where they were locked in jail, and that the only funny part was they were singing Let My People Go in the fucking cell. And this white guy all of a sudden starts singing in a baritone, like, let my people go. And they're just looking at him like, what the hell? And then he goes, clap your hands, slap your thighs, come the Jubilee. And then all of a sudden he goes, Then he goes back to looking like a hard ass. He goes, sits back down. And Carlton's like, Will? He goes, yeah. He goes, I'm scared. Because Carlton would not last in jail. Now, the success of NBC's Fresh Prince doesn't go unnoticed by competitors. The recently launched and struggling Fox Network, this is where Fox comes back, sees there's money to be made with black programming. From inspiration born of desperation, Fox ushers in a new groundbreaking black television that some people see as a cynical bid to build its brand. So yeah, Fox jumps in on black sitcoms and black TV. Because again, they're starving for content and they're trying to play up here with the big boys. So this is a big deal to them. So by 1990, cable and satellite are starting to lure affluent, mostly white households away from traditional over-the-air broadcast television, leaving a much more diverse audience still exclusively watching network TV. They decided to capitalize on that by luring away talent from their big screen rivals. Now, basically this is DirecTV. Satellite dishes are coming in. You get hundreds of channels. Now, not everybody wanted a satellite, though. There were still some people that were on cable. So how do we get these people to stay on cable and not buy a satellite dish? Now, here's the thing. In my family, we had DirecTV and the satellite. Yes. But we only had the satellite for one reason and one reason only.
Football.
Yes. My dad will be goddamned if he gonna miss a Giants game. He found out, they don't play the Giants in Georgia. My dad was like, fuck that. I'm getting a satellite. In New Jersey, we didn't have a satellite dish because they always played the Giants games. But yeah, my dad was like, I'm getting all this shit. I'm going to watch my fucking Giants. Yes. Then he started watching all the other games. And now every Sunday, that's where you can find him glued to a TV. God have mercy on your soul if he gets called into work on a football day. You all gonna die. Then, of course, there was the Black Rat Pack. The black people version of the Rat Pack, which was Robert Townsend, Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, Damon and Keenen Ivory Wayans. Yes. Funny black guys who produce their own movies. Fresh off of I'm Gonna Get You Sucker, which I've never seen that movie.
Yeah.
I want to, but I haven't seen it. Keenen Ivory Wayans was given a deal at Fox, and they basically gave him a bunch of money and said, make us different. Because again, this is back when Fox could throw money at anything and look for anything. Like nowadays on TV, if something doesn't work, you can easily cancel and get shit out of there. Yes. Fox was not quick to cancel things back then because they needed shit.
Yes, they did.
Because they wanted to compete. So, thus giving him free reign to produce content. So free reign. Go ahead, Keenen. With this, the creative freedom Wayans creates a sketch comedy show that will end up laying the foundation for Fox's black sitcom boom. That, of course, being In Living Color.
In Living Color.
That's right. One of the best sketch shows on the planet.
Yes.
And basically, it came off of the fact that SNL had too many white people. So let's put some black people on the show. But they were still diverse because they had Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey.
Who, before Ace Ventura, before The Mask, before Dumb and Dumber.
Yes.
Before any of that, he was known as the white boy on In Living Color. Who fucking delivered every time.
Yes, he did.
You know, some of the best sketches they had, Fire Marshal Bill.
Oh my God.
You know.
Fire Marshal Bill. Jesus Christ. So what will happen here if I set this thing head on fire? Nobody's here to put it out. No. It takes a whole fire machine and sprays the whole glass. There, the fire is out. And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh, see, right here, this is a hazard. Let me show you something. See? Let's say...
Poor Fire Marshal Bill.
Let's say you got your black and mild. You're walking over to the computer. You're just strolling along thinking, I'm going to log on and do some internet porn. All of a sudden you trip and the thing bursts into flames. That would be a Fire Marshal Bill scene.
Yep.
That was another one. My favorite one, though, one of my favorite ones, though, was Damon Wayans, Homie the Clown. Jim Carrey was also in this sketch as a little boy. Basically, it's Christmas time. But instead of Santa Claus coming out, it was Homie the Clown dressed as Santa. So he doesn't have a beard or anything. He's like, children, come gather around. And every time they try to do something, he goes, his catchphrase would always be, he had this sock with something in it, and he would whack somebody in the head, and he'd go, I don't think so. Homie, don't play that.
Homie, don't play that.
And he would say, like, homie, can we sit on your lap and tell you what we want for Christmas? And he says the best line. And if I'm ever dressed as Santa, I'm using this.
What's the line?
He goes, Oh, so let I get this straight. You want me to lower myself so you can assume a superior position and then demand tribute. That is the best way to describe a kid sitting on Santa's leg. Mm-hmm. I lower myself, you're in a superior position because you're on my knee, and you're wanting toys. He's like, and demand tribute. I love that fucking line. Mm-hmm. That was it for me. And also, homie would be like, come dump the clown, $1. Bing, try again, $1. And the guy's clearly hitting the target. Try again, $1. He found out he didn't connect the buzzer to the thing, so he's scamming people out of their money. Mm-hmm. So even if you hit the target, it doesn't cause them to fall in the water because he didn't connect them. It was fucking brilliant. I love it. And then there was also one where Jim Carrey was Mr. Rogers, and they had some stereotypical ones too, like police officers and things like that. And there's a lot of other like great characters on there. Like a lot of people came out of there. In fact, here's something most people may not remember. Do you know who was one of the original like dancers on In Living Color?
Who?
Jennifer Lopez.
Really?
Before she became famous, before she went into music, and you know she had that breakthrough song. You know, if you had my love and I gave you all my trust, would you comfort me? That was her transferring into music. Fox opened the door to black performers, black talent, black producers to have a voice. Mm-hmm. So even though there's all these other shows on different networks, Fox put more of an emphasis on black sitcoms than the other networks. Some of them have like one. They had like several. And it took a year for Fox to pick up the show. But someone got a hold of the pilot and bootlegged it to sell on VHS or on the streets in Harlem, Brooklyn, and Queens. So this is how it became popular. Because that's what people used to do. They used to bootleg stuff. And that's how they gained a fan base. Because, you know, that was one other stereotype was black people didn't like to spend a lot of money. They would get bootleg versions of stuff at a cheaper price. In Living Color, with its mostly black cast, soon draws a passionate fan base that is rival the most white sketch comedy show, SNL, can only dream about. The show deliberately pushes boundaries. It became such a phenomenon that it changed how we watch America's biggest game. Now, before I get into any of this, obviously there was a competition with SNL, which was hard to do. Because SNL in the 90s, that was like the best time of SNL. When people talk about classic moments in the history of Saturday Night Live, no pun intended, 90% of them come from the 90s. Maybe the early 2000s. But the 90s, that was when you had the heavy hitters. The Chris Farleys, the Adam Sandlers, the Rob Schneiders, the David Spade, Dana Carvey, Chris Rock. I think Dana Carvey was still kind of there.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he was still kind of there. Then later on came, you know, the Will Ferrells, the Jimmy Fallons. Molly Shannon, Chris Kattan was good as well. You know, the Head Bop, the Roxbury. For them to beat that, that's how you know these guys were talented. Yeah. Because, obviously, if they're taking on the SNL people of today, that's a layup. Not a lot of people even watching SNL today. No. Last SNL episode I watched, John Cena was hosting. And that was the only reason I watched. Prior to In Living Color, the Super Bowl halftime shows had this kind of edge. They had, like, the Peanuts Gang and all kids. That was before that, back in the day. Yeah. They would show the Peanuts Gang, and, you know, they would have kids doing funny stuff at halftime. But then, in 1992, while CBS was airing a quaint Disney-produced halftime show, Fox counters with their own halftime special. A 27-minute live episode of In Living Color. The stunt pulls almost 29 million viewers over to Fox while tanking CBS's second half ratings. And here's what made it even better.
What?
It was live, but they had a countdown clock in the corner. And basically, when that clock struck 0, the second half was going to start. Yeah. So you had it timed to, that way, their goal was by the time they reached 0, they're on stage going, thank you guys for tuning in. You know, at the end when they congratulate everybody. Yeah. Thanks to everybody. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next week. 1, 0, second half. Yep. And they timed it perfectly. Yep. Now, the next year, after that, this is why it changed. Because after In Living Color beat them, no more Disney stuff, no more Peanuts Gang, no more all kids. This is when the musical guests started popping up.
Yep.
Because they had the King of Pop, Michael Jackson, performs at next year's halftime show. Mm-hmm. As for Fox, instead of letting In Living Color press the attack, the network goes into a prevent defense. Because they knew, okay, we're not beating Michael Jackson. Sorry. In Living Color had talented people. You can't beat the King of Pop.
No, you cannot.
The man is considered the greatest entertainer that ever lived. By the summer of 1992, Keenan is in constant battles with the network's censors over what he can and can't say on air. Fox also dilutes the show's appeal by syndicating it to local stations. A decision made without consulting Wayans. Which again, this is when they try to take power over your show. It prevented them from making money and making the show in bigger success. You don't syndicate a show while it's still on the air. That's a key thing. Anytime you put a show into syndication, it has to be when the show is done. No new episodes, no new seasons. Like, hey, this is the final season. Thank you guys so much. Show's now over. You're moving on to another project. Yes. Then you put it into syndication. And apparently, and I learned this from watching one of the Darkside comedies, you have to hit a certain number of episodes in order to even qualify for syndication. Because there was one show, I won't say what it is, but you'll see it when we do Boochcast reviews Darkside comedy, or when I do it with special guests. There was one show that was 5 episodes short of syndication. And the only reason they didn't get it was because the show was shut down after the star had an ugly meltdown. I'm not going to tell you who. I will say this, though. It's not the person in this episode. I know what Zach's thinking. No, it's not him.
Okay.
It's somebody else. So, in protest, on the season 4 premiere, Keenan Ivory Wayans makes his last on-screen appearance. Fox keeps it on the air, but within a year, the entire Wayans family has left the show. Yeah. So there's nobody with the last name Wayans affiliated with In Living Color at this point. And they also start bringing in more white people to replace them. That's why in the later years, Jim Carrey's not the only white guy on the show. Yeah. Although sometimes, if they need extra white people for a sketch, they'll sometimes bring in like white people for a one-off. And I learned this when I did sketch comedy. And I hate to make this about me, but I'm going to for a moment. I was in a similar situation where I did a sketch show called The Going Live Show.
Yes, I remember that.
We had this one sketch we were doing where we were playing members of a board of directors for GameStop. We were doing a parody of the whole stock market thing with GameStop, where the stock went crazy. Yeah. And so many people bought shares and shit. So we were doing this thing where we're in a board meeting and, basically we're talking about how GameStop is successful. What's the next stop that we're going to do? And all of a sudden, some random people come in off the street who bought shares on, I think it was Robin or something. And because they had shareholders, they're like, hey, we're here for the shareholders meeting. But they got like 2 stocks of shares. But it's kind of like, okay, come on over. You can take a seat, I guess. And it gets out of control where there's like there's a couple hip-hop guys come in. This redneck chick come in, looks like Daisy from the Dukes of Hazzard. Another guy comes in, looking like a redneck, yelling at the other girl, going, where's my dinner? It's a funny sketch. But I remember when I first got the script, I didn't know what was happening yet. They were going through the list of names, like who's playing who. And it said, white male number 1, Vinny Bucci. And I went, what the fuck? I'm thinking to myself, number 1, I'm the only one. The fuck? Y'all won't even give me, I even walked in like, y'all won't even give me a name? What the fuck is this? I was mad. And they looked at me and they said, Vinny, there's other white people in the sketch. I'm like, say what now? They came in, and they were nice people. Yes, sir. Although the one funny moment happened. What? After we wrapped up filming the sketch and we had the big Thursday live performance and everything, afterwards we're all kind of talking backstage. The girl comes up to me. The girl that was dressed as Daisy from the Dukes of Hazzard. She comes up to me and she shakes my hand. And here's the funny part right here. She said, you did such a great job. I'm like, so did you. I was like, hey, you were very, very talented. We're complimenting each other. She goes, so, you think they'll bring you back again? And I just looked at her, and I kind of went, yeah, I hope so. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm a core cast member, bitch. She thought because I was white, I was also brought in for the day. She didn't know I work here. It's like, coming back again? Yeah, I'm going to be back next week because I work on the fucking show. It kind of reminds me of that George Lopez joke where he was having some work done on his house and he gave money to a contractor. And the contractor had a bunch of Mexicans come over and help fix up the house. And George is like, shit, I could have done this.
Mm-hmm.
But at one point, because George was out for the day, they decided to goof around and hang out in his pool. So George comes back to his house, sees a bunch of Mexicans inside his pool, wondering what the hell's going on. And one of the Mexicans looks over at George and says, "Hey, jump in. The man's not home." Not knowing that's his fucking house. But I didn't want to be mean to her. So I just said, "Yeah, I hope so," and walked away. I went and told Jerry and a few other people what happened. They all started laughing. Fox canceled In Living Color in 1994 after its 5th season. So it ran 5 seasons. But the show's early success drives Fox's programming decisions for much of the 90s. No. So even though they canceled In Living Color, they still want to work and have black sitcoms out there. At the height of In Living Color's success, Fox was looking for more of the same. And in Martin Lawrence, they find their next black comedy juggernaut to exploit.
I remember Martin. I love Sinead.
Yeah.
I loved him as Sinead.
Sinead?
Oh, Sinead. And he did all those skits. I remember a midget being on there too. I think. Like,
I think it was Buster or Rerun or something.
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, Happy Halloween. It was like, dude, Halloween was 2 days ago.
That moment somebody walks through a window or whatever, he goes, "Bro, man, what you doing here?" "None. Just chilling." He was so calm and mellow. Or Tommy like, "Hey, I got this at my job." "You ain't got no job, Tommy."
You got no job.
By the way, rest in peace, Tommy Ford. I actually worked with Tommy on a few movie projects, so I got to know Tommy Ford. He was awesome. Never met the other cast, but I met Tommy Ford. Actually, if you go on my personal YouTube channel, I have an acting reel. Mm-hmm. There's a scene with me and Tommy Ford.
Oh, gotcha.
And our chemistry was off the charts. So he was a good guy. I like Tommy Ford. But, oh yeah, Shanae was great. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you my favorite character, though. Jerome.
Yeah, Jerome.
I said, I said,
Yeah, Jerome.
I said, Jerome's in the house. I said, Jerome's in the house. Watch your mouth.
Watch your mouth.
Do you want to hear the player call?
No.
Don't you see, man? I'm the original player from the Himalayas. Digging the scene with my gangster lean. He don't want to hear it. Y'all can hear the player call. Yeah, can I speak to Sonia?
Sonia.
What's happening, baby? Let me ask you something. You can't call nobody.
Sinead was funny. Martin was funny. I enjoyed Martin.
Yeah.
I did. I enjoyed Martin.
In the early 90s, sitcoms featuring stand-up comedians are taking off. For example, there's Roseanne. There was Mad About You, which I actually liked.
I did like Mad About You.
I didn't know Paul Reiser was a comic, though.
Yeah.
Like, what attracted me to it at first was the fact that I didn't know Helen Hunt had a TV show. But when I saw Mad About You, it was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
I felt the chemistry was good between the two. It was very funny at times. Like, Mad About You was a good show. Yeah. Then, of course, Full House with Bob Saget.
Rest in peace, Bob Saget.
Yes.
Fuck, he goes from the loving, caring dad to that.
Well, here's the answer. I have the answer for that.
What?
Originally, when Bob Saget was a comic, he wasn't like as vulgar as he got later, but he was a dirty comic. Yeah. He did tell some dirty jokes. He said, I've been with my girlfriend for 7 years. Yeah, that's her age. I'm going to jail. You know.
Oh my God. Jesus Christ.
That's an early Bob Saget.
You say that now, no.
Yeah.
You say that now, you're in trouble. You're
exactly.
You're fucked.
Exactly.
But
people understood it was a joke. That's why they laughed. He's not really dating a 7-year-old. So then, eventually he got on Full House. And he wanted to bring edge to the Danny Tanner character while he was on the show. But the ABC wanted to be squeaky clean. That's why he was squeaky clean Danny Tanner. And that show ran 8 years.
Yes.
He also did America's Funniest Home Videos.
Yes.
That lasted 8 years. So he was spending most of his life doing family shit. Yeah. So for the shock value, he went the opposite way and just dove into the filthy comedy and stand-up. Like, what attracted me when I saw his first special since then, I saw Bob Saget, it said TVMA. I'm like, I gotta see this. I did not expect him to go that way. In fact, even halfway through his set, I know there's people right now looking at me going, what the fuck happened to Mr. Tanner? What the fuck? And he's just talking and he'll do random freestyling with the crowd. He goes, I'm gonna tell you right now, never fucking goat. I don't know you, but I'm telling you, never fucking goat. Do you hear me, son?
Okay. And
people understood it was a character. He was doing that as a response to all the family shit he did for years. So that's why it worked. Because some comics go that route and they're not funny.
No.
Bob Saget was always funny. I remember one person did a joke like, he said if comedians use foul language as a crutch, Bob Saget's a quadriplegic. And one of the hottest stand-up acts of the day is Martin Lawrence. He was amazing in the 90s. He is Play from Kid and Play's cousin. Okay. So if you remember the group Kid and Play, whoever Play is, that was his cousin.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah. And he worked at a call center. So before he got famous, his day job was working at a call center. And at that call center, he worked with Kid and Play and Salt and Pepper. Back when they were trying to make it. So this is back before Kid and Play became Kid and Play, before Salt and Pepper became Salt and Pepper. They all worked together in a call center. Yeah. The critical commercial success of Kid and Play's movie House Party provides a step up for many screen careers, including Martin's. So they all blew up from the movie House Party. In 1991, Martin Lawrence signs the deal to make his self-named sitcom. It wasn't a highbrow comedy, but it related to the young audience. He surrounded himself with strong performers, and he also played the 9 other characters. I mentioned Jerome and Shanae, Rerun. There was also Otis, the police officer. Oh yeah, you messing with old Otis. Like, you want to run that by me one more time there, boy? Oh, see, you just committed a 5 to 10. What does that mean? It means I'm fitting to whoop your ass for the next 5 to 10 minutes. Oh, this is great. And then, of course, he played his mom, too.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that no good, Gina? Make me say, damn. It was fucking great.
It was very great.
Martin knew how to play that so well. And, of course, Gina.
Yeah.
Tiffany Campbell, like, she fucking killed that.
She did.
You know, and of course, Pam. Pam was awesome. Really was. Like, obviously, Martin didn't like her at all.
No.
But they were friends on some level. And I knew they were. I still remember one of my favorite scenes is when Martin's trying to win Gina back. And he's going to propose to her. He calls Pam on the phone. Because Pam's Gina's best friend. He goes, Pam, clear your schedule. We going ring shopping. Hell no! This is for Gina. I don't like you. And they're looking at different rings. And they see one that's perfect. Like, Pam's talking about how perfect it is. Martin's liking it. He goes, this is good. And then he goes, oh, wait. Excuse me, miss. Somebody left their social security number on here. And she goes, oh, no, that's the price. He's like, damn! And you see his eyes light up. And Pam's trying to convince him to buy it. She goes, you can stretch that out over a long period of time. He goes, Pam, ain't nobody living this damn long. And she's trying to tell her, like, Martin, stop being cheap. Gina about to fly away. You need to want to win her back. She going away. You got to reach out. Hold on to her. Pull her in. Like, they do this like crazy comedic scene. Yeah. Then he goes, all right. And Pam's jumping down excited because it's a great ring. And she goes, lady, I want your badge. I want your ID number. Excuse me. I want your social security number. Because if Gina and I break up, the ring's coming back. And it was a Pam. He said, because ain't nobody living this damn long. So he pays for the damn ring. And, of course, he proposes, and she says yes, and they go from there. The success of Martin provided opportunities for other black artists to prosper. And those opportunities came quickly. Encouraged by the success of Martin, Fox hires black sitcom creators like no other network. So now they see Martin blowing up, because Martin's damn good, and the show was that damn good. So now they're like, oh, we got to capitalize on this. Because, again, this was the key to Fox's success. They reached out to a target audience that no one else was looking at. First, it was the teenagers. They started with that. Now it's like, okay, the teenagers are kind of... We got this set over here, but it's mostly white teenagers, if we're being technical. Obviously, there might not to say that some black people didn't enjoy Party of Five or Beverly Hills 90210, but not very many.
True.
These other places are not really catering to the black audience. So Fox is like, we're going to do it.
Yes.
This is going to be the place for black people to go.
Yep.
Which I know a lot of you are sitting here going, Fox was a place for black people to go? Yes it was. Yes, it was. I know it doesn't seem that way today, but it was.
Yes, it was.
So, shows like Rock, South Central, The Sinbad Show, and Living Single. These shows made it hip and fun to be black. Okay.
I don't remember hardly anything.
Rock? Oh my god. I'd never seen a whole episode, but I saw some YouTube clips. There's a scene, and again, these are two actors. I cannot remember their names for the life of me, but if I saw their faces, I remember. There's a scene where this guy, where Rock basically lives in a, he lives in the projects, and his job is he's a sanitation guy. He's a garbage man, but he makes a good living, supports his family. All of a sudden, this crack dealer moves across the street. He's basically turning the house across the street into a crack house, and Rock doesn't like it, so he's doing complaints and everything. And at one point, those two guys get in each other's faces, and he's basically trying to threaten them, and Rock's basically looking at him like, I ain't scared of you. And they almost get into an altercation. He goes, look, man, I came here to give you fair warning. So they kind of had a feud for a while. Now, eventually, the guy gets shot and ends up in jail. Now, I don't know how many seasons or how long this goes, but there's a certain point where Rock and that guy eventually come back around and they become friends because he gets his life back together. And there's a moment where there's a kid that gets involved in a drive-by shooting. And apparently this kid had pulled a gun on somebody and took his jacket. So he went to get his jacket back. And the kid was at Rock's house because he was a friend of his son. As he's leaving, all of a sudden they hear pop, 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 gunshots. Kid's dead. And he gets his jacket back. And the mom of the dead son is confronting the kid who shot him and trying to figure out the problem. And, I can't believe my son lost his life over a jacket. He goes, jacket my ass. I killed him for pulling a gun on me. Which I can't really argue with the kid for that. But the mom, of course, gets angry because the kid has no remorse for killing her son. None. Andre is the character's name, but I can't remember the actor's name. The guy's name was Andre, just remember it. Because he said he wants to be cool like Andre. And Rock goes to Andre, who's sitting in a bar, and talked in a while, and he tries to tell him, look, you need to talk to this kid. These kids are following down the same path you are because they think it's cool to be you. You got to do something. So he walks in there, and he walks up to the kid, and he's being nice to him. He goes, hey, man, what's up? He goes, yeah, man, I'm just getting ready to do my time, man. Like you. He goes, what you gonna do while you're in there? He goes, I don't know, man, but I'll manage. He goes, I'll tell you exactly what you gonna do. What? He said, you ain't gonna last a day. By the end of the day, they'll be passing you around the cell block. Joint. Think you know what hard time is? You think you know what it's like to be me? You can never be me, son. You ain't got the heart. I spent half my life penitentiary. I know what it's like to get shot. I know what it's like to see my friends die around me. I know what it's like to be in a situation where I'm hanging out with a group of people not knowing if somebody is going to put a bullet in the back of my head. Not knowing who to trust. That's my life. And because you ain't got the heart to be me, I'm going to help you, son. I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to go to the warden. You're going to ask him to put you in solitary confinement. You got to worry about nothing. Then, while you're in here, I'll pick up a Bible and give yourself a goddamn education while you're in here. Don't you waste your time. Find it in your heart. Write a letter to that boy's mother saying when you get out, you will do whatever you have to do to get her to forgive you. That's what you're going to do. Get the hell out of my face. And the kid gets up and leaves. It is one of the most intense fucking things I've seen on TV. And Rock was as close to black culture as you could get. And it showed redemption. Again, guy was a crack dealer, came out the other side. Had that intense moment. See, Zach's tearing up. That's how intense that shit was. Now, South Central I never saw.
I never saw South Central.
Sinbad Show, never saw that.
Never saw that.
Living Single I did see, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But they also had actors, rappers, producers, singers, and writers making cameo appearances. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, Biggie made an appearance on Martin.
Yeah.
One of my favorites, though, from Martin, Billy D. Williams. Had the best. Because this is back when Martin had broken up with Gina, and he was trying to accept the fact that he can get along without her. And Billy D. was talking about how, like, the love of a good woman lasts you forever.
Wait a minute. Is he the guy who was, he was in Star Wars. That's him, right?
Landau.
Yeah.
He was Landau.
Landau, yeah. Landau.
So Billy D, at one point, he's talking about how, like, you got to work hard at it every day, Martin. Because a love like that is worth it. Otherwise, both your love and hers wither and die. And everybody's like cheering, and I'm paraphrasing here. I'm not doing this justice, but it shows how smooth Billy D. Williams was. And he's like, do you love her, Martin? He goes, yes, Billy D, yes. He's like, then go get her, Martin. Don't let her leave. And he goes, go to her, Martin. And he goes, yes, Billy D, yes. And he runs out of his own radio show. He just runs out the door. It was so fucking great. So that was my favorite. My favorite cameo was Billy D. Williams. But yeah, they start bringing in people to draw in audiences. Now, by 1993, the once fledgling network is now home to most of the highest rated shows amongst black audiences. 25% of the audience revenue stream was African American. So they got 25% black people. Martin's popularity and authentic no-holds-barred comedy lands him the hosting gig on SNL. Now, of course, Martin Lawrence was known before he got into the sitcom world and the movie world and how we know him today. As a stand-up, he was known for having very raunchy comedy. Mm-hmm. In fact, it was so raunchy, I didn't even know he was a comic till 2002 when he came out with Run Tell That. But before that came out, he was known for his other special, You So Crazy. Mm. And he had a bit that he did in there. And I'm going to get to that in a moment because he lands the gig of hosting SNL. It also lands him in trouble with the NBC censors. Mm. He does a bit about feminine hygiene that gets the rest of his monologue censored and gets him banned from SNL for life. But his fans love it.
Yeah.
But he got banned for life by Saturday Night Live.
Which is odd.
Yeah.
Seriously, over that? I was like, seriously, dude? Good God.
He was talking about going down on girls, but he said, as much as I love to go down on every single girl here, unfortunately, you can't do everybody. Because some of you don't wash your ass. He's like, some of y'all don't wash your ass properly. Mm. You don't go from the back to the front. You don't bring the shit to the clit. You can't do that. You gotta go bow, 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 back, and drop. Mm-hmm. And he's doing this whole movement with it. And also talking about, like, you know, this girl comes in, gets all shit crumbs in the bed. It's all dirty bed. But the grossest thing that grows everybody out is at the end of the joke, he talks about, like, you know, girls, you gotta clean everything up before you go down there. You can't let a guy go down on you knowing you got a damn yeast infection. Coming up with dough on his motherfucking lip. Talking about anybody got butter? I like jelly on mine. Jelly on mine. And that's the punchline to the joke. And even the audience was like, not comfortable. That's the type of comedy that doesn't always work on white people. And he forgot SNL is a predominantly white audience.
Yes.
The next year, he launches what will become a $500 million franchise with Will Smith called Bad Boys. But Martin's fast-rising career is about to come crashing down. Yeah. Now, I don't know if they're going to do a season 2 of Darkside of Comedy, so I may end up repeating some of this stuff here. But just in case, obviously I'm going to tell the incident here. But I'm just letting you know, if they do a season 2 of Darkside of Comedy and Martin Lawrence is the topic, this may come up again. The only difference is Zach won't be there to talk about it, so Zach will be able to give most of his thoughts here. Okay. 1994, NBC is #1 in the ratings. On a rebuilt Thursday must-see TV that followed the departure of The Cosby Show in a different world. Seinfeld, Mad About You, Friends, and Mad Men of the People basically was an all-white Thursday night lineup. Fox counters by creating a black Thursday night lineup anchored by 2 of its most popular sitcoms, Martin and Living Single. NBC was #1 in all households, but Fox was #1 in black and brown households. Basically, this is kind of like where AEW wins in the key demo, but WWE wins overall in ratings. That's kind of how that works. So it's like AEW hits their target audience, but can't beat the ratings of Raw and SmackDown.
Not even close.
But television reporters didn't seem to live in black and brown households. They couldn't understand why anyone would want to watch a show with a bunch of women sitting around talking about men and sex. And they thought Martin was slapstick buffoonery.
I don't want to say is really he was slapstick. He was very goofy, but slapstick. But he tackled serious topics and stuff like that. I know he did.
There's a reason why people want to watch these shows. Because they're funny.
Yeah, they're funny.
And they had people on there who were hilarious. Mm-hmm. Queen Latifah, Kim Coles. Yeah. I can't remember the other people's names.
Yeah.
But
we remember these shows, we just don't remember the actors and actresses' names. Like, what? Because we haven't seen them forever.
Yeah, I don't exactly keep a directory, okay?
Yeah, that's true.
Some I remember because I watched Living Single, but I didn't watch it religiously.
Yeah.
So, I didn't watch it enough to learn anybody else. Yeah, but they made the show great. That's why people want to watch it. First of all, they did what women do. Some women sit around and talk about men, they talk about sex. Mm-hmm. The women talk about sex. They just talk about it differently than men do.
Yes, they do.
You know, it's just a different kind of thing.
Yes.
And Martin was not slapstick buffoonery.
No, it wasn't.
It was funny. It was entertaining. It had slapstick moments.
Of course it did.
But there was a story being told.
Yeah.
And there were serious moments, too, that tapped into things. And plus, and they'll mention it here, we'll mention it soon, Martin and Gina, their chemistry, there is not a man or woman on the planet that doesn't wish they had a relationship like Martin and Gina.
True. They
loved each other. They were very sexual. They were sarcastic. They could ball bust each other. And it was great. They had the romantic chemistry that most people in marriages and relationships wish that they had.
Yeah.
That ability is amazing. So that's why the show worked. Like, I remember one time they were trying to make this bet where they had to abstain from sex because everybody thought their relationship revolved around sex. So at one point, they try to tempt each other at the end of and then finally they both start snapping. And Martin's just like, come on, Gina. And Gina's like, I don't want to do this because then if we cave in, it'll be like all our relationship is about is sex. There's no love. He's like, come on, Gina. We both love sex, so how's there no damn love? And you see Gina kind of rationing going, that's true. That's true. That's true. And we have other interests. Yeah, we like movies. Yeah, movies. We watch basketball. Yeah, the Pistons. Absolutely. And then finally they just give up. Martin picks Gina up. And Gina goes, Martin, I love you. He goes, I love you, girl. And then she starts singing. Ah! And they run into the bedroom. You see clothes being thrown out onto the floor. Because they can't show them being naked.
No, they cannot.
But that was a great scene. Even some established black actors didn't get it. With the most established being the then sitcom legend, Bill Cosby.
Yep.
He felt Martin was stereotypical and vulgar. It was hurtful because those comics he was bashing loved him and looked up to him. And they found it hypocritical when the real him was discovered.
Yep, I remember. Yeah. Talk about biting the ass there, Mr. Bill Cosby.
Yes, you have to watch your language and to make sure you eat lots of Jell-O pudding. Yes, watch your language and pay no attention to the pill going into the drink. Because that's gotta be the thing. He gave people so much shit for being vulgar, like the Eddie Murphy story. When Bill Cosby's son, Ennis, went to go see Eddie Murphy live one time. And Bill Cosby got mad at Eddie for being dirty. He goes, I would like to talk to you about some of the things that you do in your show. Now, I'm going to tell you a story. He always has a story. I'm going to tell you a story. Now, I have 5 children. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children. My son comes up to me, my oldest, he goes, Mother, please, Mommy, please, Daddy, please. I want to go see the Eddie Murphy show. Please give me money for a ticket. Now, if the child is saying he needs money for a ticket, I got to give him money for a ticket. I do not handle the ticket money. My wife, Camille, handles the ticket money. So she says, yes, gives him the money, he goes off, he goes to see your show. Now, we sit in the living room waiting for Ines to return. At about 5 o'clock in the morning, the child comes through the door. He has a different look on his face. It appears he heard something at your show that he's never heard before. And I look at my child, I say, Child, what did the man say on the stage? And he goes, Pop, the man comes out and says these things. I said, well, what did he say? Well, he came out and did this stuff. I said, well, what did he do? He said, suck this and MF and kiss my big black stuff and stuck your dick in your mouth and suck it, suck it. You cannot say filth, florn, filth, flow, filth in front of people. And Eddie's like, I never said no filth, florn, filth. He goes, you know what I'm talking about. I don't use the type of language that you use, but you know what I mean when I say the filth, flarn, filth, foul, filth. He goes, I ain't never said no filth, flarn, filth. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm offended that you called. Fuck you. He goes, that's what I'm talking about. You cannot say fuck. He got Bill Cosby to say it in front of people. And then he's like, and I got mad. He thought that was my whole act. That I just went out on stage and cursed and left. He goes, I was thinking some jokes in between the curses. You can't give just a curse show. I could come out and go, hey, I'm Eddie Murphy. Snot, pussy, dick, and shit. All right, there you go. Suck my dick. Bye-bye. Like, he can't just go out and say that stuff.
No.
But yeah, so Bill Cosby, giving people shit, and Eddie Murphy said, I called Richard Pryor, and he said, you know, Bill told me I was too ready on stage. And Rich said, the next time the motherfucker calls, tell him I said suck my dick. Because I don't give a fuck. Look, whatever the fuck make the people laugh, say that shit. Do people laugh when they say what you say? Yes. He said, do you get paid? I said, yeah. He goes, then tell Bill I said have a Coke and a smile and shut the fuck up. Jello pudding eating motherfucker. Yeah. So all that, and then we find out Bill Cosby. Again, this is why Bill Cosby didn't age well. This is a guy who gave people shit for being vulgar and dirty and making black people look bad. You know what makes black people look bad? Raping 54 bitches.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'd say that's a bigger stain on the black culture. Meanwhile, the person doing the most harm to Martin Lawrence is Martin Lawrence. He had bipolar disorder and was manic depressive. Obviously, we didn't know this at the time.
I didn't know that either.
He was also abusing substances. This led to drama on set, and he was at odds with most of the cast. Violent acts, allegations of harassment with cast members, as well as crew members, were threatened verbally and physically. Now, I didn't know this part of Martin's story. Now, I knew some fucked up shit had happened to Martin, because he told the story in Run Tell That. He tells a few of them, but it didn't go to this length. This is when I first learned that Martin Lawrence had these issues and was actually going off, because I did hear about the harassment thing, because Gina accused Martin of that.
Okay.
But I didn't know that he was on set being violent and losing his goddamn mind. And in May of 1996, his private demons become very public. Yeah. Lawrence wanders into LA traffic, packing a loaded gun and ranting incoherently. After fighting with police, he is restrained and hospitalized. More reports of public violence follow. He had serious mental health issues, but it doesn't excuse his behavior. And that's a key thing that needs to be remembered. Obviously, it's sad when someone has mental illness. And I believe if you have mental illness, you should get help. And I hope you do get help. But it doesn't excuse your behavior. You were still an asshole. You still threaten people. It's like I used to say when the whole pandemic was at its absolute highest and I was working at Lowe's. I understand people are nervous and scared of the virus. That doesn't mean I have to take your bullshit.
True.
You can't use that as an excuse to come at me verbally and think I ain't gonna respond to your ass. I'm still gonna respond to your ass. Because of the fear and time, I may forgive you. But in the heat of the moment, fuck around and find out. But also, I remember he talked about this in Run Tell That. Because what happened was, he said he had gotten some, what he thought was some regular weed. But it was laced with something. And that's why he's thinking, what did the dope man done sold me? I'm seeing all this weird shit. And then all of a sudden, something in my head goes, run real fast right now. Then they tried to say that I had a gun. And they think just because I'm black, I'm going to have a gun. He goes, okay, well, I did have a gun. And he said, but I wasn't going to hurt nobody. It's just I was in LA. I was trying to protect myself in case somebody tried to come at me. And then he said, like, all of a sudden, his jacket flies open and they see the gun. And as we mentioned before in the Cops episode, cops see a weapon, they load up. And then that's when he passed out and they hospitalized him. And he was speaking incoherently because he said, like, at one point they were getting into an ambulance to carry him off. And they were like, Martin, are you okay? And he said he was sitting there going, you know, monkeys like to play volleyball.
Yeah, you need to go to the you're gonna need the mental hospital first.
You know, pit bulls like to wear Jordans. Like he was saying delusional shit like that. They're like, Mr. Lawrence, are you okay? The ratings of his show decline along with his mental health, but Martin's Thursday night sibling is soaring, and that of course is being Living Single. Living Single was a black woman sitcom starring black women who were young and successful. That was the focal point of the show. Now, there were guys that were in it, but it mostly revolved around the four women. That was the predominant part of it. It was also created and run by a black woman named Yvette Lee Bowser. She was the creator of the show. The show's focus on a family of friends does not escape the notice of network rival NBC. Living Single premiered in 1993, with the star character being Queen Latifah. The show was about four black women living in New York and their two male black men friends who live across the hall from them. And then a year later comes the show Friends, which we all know with Monica, Chandler, Phoebe, Joey, Ross, and Rachel. And I'm gonna get crucified on the internet for this. But I remember all the actresses' names.
Yeah, you don't remember the black actors.
That's the sad part. That's the sad part. Courtney Cox, Matthew Perry, Matt LeBlanc, Lisa Kudrow, David Schwimmer, Jennifer Aniston. I know. Crucify me, I get it. I'm sorry. I watched Friends more than I watched Living Single. I'm sorry. They say that Friends is the white version of Living Single. And according to Kim Coles, if you look at the themes side by side, you will see quite a few similarities, except in the paychecks. Mm-hmm. Okay. Never mind the fact that there's an all-black sitcom and an all-white sitcom. You also got to factor in one other thing. NBC had more money than Fox. So factor that in before you start jumping to race automatically. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Fox, like I said, they were building themselves up. They weren't part of the network chain yet. NBC, CBS, and ABC were still the big three. Fox was fighting them. They were still the redheaded stepchild in the room. Sorry. That's the saying. It's not my fault. They were still the underdogs here. And I do agree they were talking at one point about the poker game. There was a poker game in Living Single and a poker game in Friends that was slightly similar, except there wasn't a scene where someone got called a bitch and kicked out of the house. But they did have a card moment. I can admit that's a similarity. There was one moment there where they tried to say there was this annoying girl in Living Single. And they said, oh, Janice is based on her. That's a stretch. That I don't buy. I don't buy the Janice thing. I'm sorry. That I don't agree with. And I do know that Friends tackled some issues I'm not sure Living Single did. I have to really look at both shows again to really figure it out. I've seen all of Friends, but I think if I binge watch Living Single at some point, maybe I can figure it out. Because like I said, I did love the show. I really did watch it.
I enjoyed it.
I remember the character Kyle. He hooked up with this girl who he hated throughout the entire series. But eventually they finally get together. And I remember that chemistry was amazing. Although the way they hooked up was different from the other Friends because Ross and Rachel didn't hate each other. Monica and Chandler didn't hate each other. And also, this is a pet peeve that I have as well. And I mentioned a lot of them in this. One of the biggest complaints people have about Friends is they feel that it wasn't diverse enough. First of all, let me just say this. Stop being a fucking snowflake, number one. Number two, not every show has to have a multi-ethnic cast. Okay?
Sure.
For example, Living Single had mostly black people. Pretty much all black people. They had a couple white people playing other roles, like minor roles and stuff. But the main characters were all black. You know who complained? Nobody. If someone did, please send me a link. Send me a link to somebody that complained there was no white people in any of the sitcoms I've mentioned. Name me one, and I'll shut up. But just because that plays as all white people, they're allowed to do that. It's how the script is written. And also, here's a harsh reality for most people. Most people who grow up in a certain neighborhood tend to become friends with people of the same race. Like, I'll be honest. I have a lot of black friends. But guess what? Most of my black friends live here in Georgia. When I lived in Ohio, I had one black friend. First black kid I ever met. We were in the same elementary school class together. His name was Marcus. He and I were friends through elementary school until I moved. We reconnected on social media for a little while, but then we lost touch again. But I knew him when we were kids. And when I lived in New Jersey, mostly I was hanging out with white people when I lived up north. Now, when I came down south, I started having more black friends. I started meeting more black people. I started interacting with more black people. That's why down here, I have predominantly black friends. It depends on where you live.
True. So,
unless you're one of those people that grew up on army bases and you were in classes with people of different ethnic backgrounds and saw them all the time, you're hard-pressed to find somebody that had a white friend and a black friend and a Mexican friend and an Asian friend. It's not realistic.
True.
At least when you're a kid. Now, maybe when you're an adult, you might have that clique, but it's not as realistic. Mostly, white people tend to hang out with a lot of white people. Black people tend to hang out with a lot of black people. I'm not saying they're the only people they're allowed to hang out with. I'm just saying that's the majority of the time. When you're growing up, when you're going to places. Depends on where you live and where you grow up. So, no, Friends was not required to be diverse. If you want to do a show with all white people, do it. You want to do a show with all black people, do it. You want to do a Mexican sitcom? Everybody on there is Mexican? Do it. As long as it's an original story, I don't fucking care. But I'm tired of everybody trying to force, like, oh, every show, you have to have a black person on this show. I don't have to have anybody on my show I don't want. Like on the Boochcast, I bring people on this show because they're talented and they can provide entertainment. Jerry Truman used to co-host this show. You know why I had him on here? We're the best of friends.
That's true.
And we had great chemistry. Lance Goodman does the football stuff for our show. You know why he's on my show? We're friends, and he is one of the most knowledgeable football people I know. He had a gift for analyzing football, who also happens to be my friend. So I had him on the show. I didn't do that because, I need a black person on here to attract black people. That's not it. I can do that on my own. I brought him on because he's talented, and there was a purpose for it. It's like when Rhiannon was on the show. I didn't have her on the show because I needed a woman. I did it because she knew a lot about wrestling. And we've been friends 20 plus years. We've known each other since we were kids. It's chemistry. It works.
It does work.
So I'm tired of that whole thing. Now, if you want to do a show where everybody's a different race or ethnic background or sexual orientation, go ahead. And guess what? If it takes off, more power to you. If it doesn't take off, don't blame society.
Don't blame society.
Blame your shitty creativity.
That's very true.
Friends instantly becomes a top 10 show, while Living Single, airing in the same time slot, is never able to find its crossover audience. It didn't.
Nope.
Again, it was a great show, but it didn't cross over. Some shows don't cross over.
No, they do not.
It depends. Martin crossed over.
Yes, he did.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air crossed over. Sadly, Living Single did not. That same year, Friends premieres on NBC. Fox does offer up a huge amount of money to secure new diverse programming. But what attracts Fox is the promise of its large white male audience. And in 1994, they win the much coveted broadcast rights to NFL Sunday Football. Like I was saying before, the NFL Sunday Ticket. This gets more viewers to Fox, and now they feel like they are on par with the big three and not just a little sibling in the background. So that was the moment that Fox finally became part of the team. Now it's no longer the big three, it's now the big four. Securing the rights to football put Fox on par. Now it's like, we're no longer in the corner, we're now sitting at the table. Now we're sitting here going, we're all equals now? So I want an equal piece of the pie, motherfuckers. So yeah, this table, I'm not sitting at the kiddie table anymore. I'm going to upgrade to right here. Final four. Deal with it. When the NFL comes to Fox, the network cancels 4 of its 6 black primetime comedies. Only Living Single and Martin survive the culling. So only Living Single and Martin are still standing.
Yeah.
Because they're still getting ratings. But now that they got football, they ain't got to worry about bringing viewers no more.
True.
You got everybody coming to Fox now.
Yeah.
Because like I said before, everybody loves football.
Everybody loves football.
That's right. Martin Lawrence's battles with his personal demons on and off set transform his once-loved sitcom into something fans don't recognize. So now the sitcom's starting to change.
Yeah.
Tisha Campbell walks off the show mid-season. Then she sues Lawrence for sexual abuses endured throughout the run of the show. The suit is quickly settled out of court. Campbell even agrees to return for the series finale with one seemingly impossible condition.
No interaction with Martin.
Yeah, she does not appear in any scenes opposite her longtime co-star. Saying to say it's for a different kind of must-see TV. And this explains so much. In that last season, there was a few episodes where Martin and Gina weren't in the same room. Where Gina wasn't there. And now, this is the funny part here. The final episode. As the series finale of Martin goes into production, tensions between the cast are worse than ever. The crux of the show is their relationship. So them not doing scenes together made it awkward.
Yeah.
Because that was it. Martin and Gina were the bread and butter of this show.
Yes,
that's what people enjoyed the most. Their chemistry. Yes. Their goofiness. The way they interacted with each other. The creative team has to make them look like a loving couple on screen without the two actors ever appearing in the same room. Now also, in the midst of all this, Living Single is canceled abruptly. So Living Single was just gone. They didn't get to wrap it up.
No.
Martin did. Now, before I move on here, this is a key thing. Here's how it worked. If you notice in the last episode, they talked about having to move to LA.
Yeah.
Basically, Gina's company, they were going to open up an office in LA, and they want her to run the office. Martin, at this point, I mentioned before he had a radio show. Since then, he had a talk show. The talk show was going to go national. But in order for it to be nationally syndicated, he had to move to LA. Now, Martin and Gina don't know that the other has a job in LA. So now they're sitting there going, how the fuck am I going to tell my wife? How the fuck am I going to tell my husband? So here's how they did it. So she flies back to Detroit. Martin gets on a plane, flies to LA to surprise his wife, only to find out she's not there. There's a moment where he picks up the phone, she picks up the phone, and they're talking, but you see a split screen. That's how they did it. They're talking about how, and he's talking about the LA thing, and he goes, oh my God, baby, are you serious? He goes, yeah. He goes, you're going to believe this. They're taking my talk show national. So we're both going to be living in LA, and they both get excited and they're happy. He goes, Martin, I was so scared. He goes, I was too. And he says, I love you too, baby. Boom. And even towards the end, there's a moment, if you look at the last scene when all the boxes are packed up, Gina's yelling, Martin, we're going to be late. And she walks out the door, and then Martin comes out, and he's talking to the rest of the group. That's why that scene was written. I never knew that till now. And that makes so much sense.
Yes, it does.
So they walk out, and then they all say goodbye to Martin and everything. They're walking out, and then they play clips of the show. And then Martin writes "One Love" on the walls, and then shuts the door, closes it. That's the end of Martin. Thursday Night on Fox becomes home to shows where things crash and burn. For example, World's Wildest Police Videos now shows up on Fox. I see you like that show?
Yes and no, I did. I just looked at it like, man, I'm glad I give up with the cops when those guys are just idiots.
By the summer of '98, Fox has dropped all black-led sitcoms from its schedule, Living in Captivity and Getting Personal, a few others. But rival film studios like Warner Brothers, who are just getting into the TV network game, see an opportunity to crib from Fox's playbook. So then we start seeing like Good Behavior, The Parenthood, In the House, and one of my personal favorites.
What?
The Steve Harvey Show.
Yeah, the Steve Harvey Show.
I love the Steve Harvey Show.
The Steve Harvey Show was good. I watched a couple episodes of Steve Harvey.
Yeah. I remember Romeo, Bullethead.
Yeah.
And what's funny was Bullethead, later when Steve Harvey had his talk show years later, Bullethead appeared as a special guest in the audience. He was like, oh man, dude. And apparently there was this white girl that he dated on the first season. Then eventually dated a black, and then his character Bullethead dated a black girl later on. Well, apparently the girl that he met on the show, the white girl, he ended up marrying her and they had 2 kids. And he brought him down. He came over and said, he goes, let me tell you something about this boy. He might have been stupid on the show, but he was smart. He said he saved his money. He goes, he never spent a dime of any of his money. He goes, me, on the other hand, I was buying cars. I was buying houses. I was so happy to finally have money. And he's like, so he saved his money. And as a joke, Bullethead goes, oh no, the wife and kids, they've spent enough of it right now. But I love that show. Regina was on there. You know, Levita. Cedric was on there too. Yeah. That was another great show. Yeah. You're waiting for Steve and Regina to finally get together. Yeah. And it was, and when they finally did, it was awesome. Yep. Steve Hightower, that was his name. Yep. And the High Tops. Yep. Their song, When the Funk Hits the Fan, all the people wanna jam, come on, get with me. Get with me. That was a great song. UPN now shows up with Moesha. Yep. I remember Moesha was Brandy. Yes. The Jamie Foxx show. Yes. I've seen that. Yeah, that's a very good show. Yeah, Jamie Foxx was great in that. Yes, especially that one bellboy or the one guy that worked behind the counter. He reminded me so much of like a Carlton type character. Because he just thought he was so sophisticated, and Jamie just loved to mess with him. And then there was, and then the other girl that he was constantly trying to hook up with, and finally got married to her. You know, and then of course, like Jamie Foxx's dad, who owns the hotels in there, and he's the same guy. I think he was on Martin too. He played Martin's boss. Yeah, that dude is great. Oh, okay. He's like, look, man, don't be wasting none of my time and money, man. But now, if somebody comes in here and they expect a mint on the pillow, you charge them an extra $5. I don't give away mints for free. That guy, I love him. That dude was great. Then you had Sister Sister. Yep. That was a good show. That was a good show. I saw a couple episodes of it. I did too. But it kind of reminded me of It Takes Two, the Olsen twins, but like a blacker version of that, obviously. Yeah. And obviously there was a different story. It was. So yeah. Then you have Malcolm and Eddie. That was Eddie Griffin. You know, he did pretty good on there. And then Homeboys in Outer Space. I'd never seen that. Never seen that. I never even heard of it. And then there was the Wayans brothers.
Okay, you can't go on with the Wayans brothers.
Oh yeah, my favorite was they had that funny intro. It's like, we're brothers. Yeah. We're happy and we're singing and we're colored. Yeah. Give me a high five.
And they just brothers roll their eyes and just
and they like get this shit off. I also remember in Scary Movie, the Wayans brothers. I can't remember who the guy's name is. Ivory. Ivory. Yeah, I don't think that wasn't Keenan Ivory. No. I don't think it was. If it was, it didn't look like him.
Okay.
But he was like, at one point, when Scary Movie, he's like, look, Cindy, TV shows don't create psychos. Canceling TV shows does. The Wayans Brothers was a good show, man. It was a good show, and we didn't even get a final episode. As he's stabbing the guy, they're doing a parody of Scream.
Yeah.
It was fucking hilarious. Initially, this leads to an even bigger explosion in black-led sitcoms, but the revival is short-lived. Yes. By the end of 1997, just 2 years after its launch, the WB network shifts its focus to white teen TV. And of course, that leads to... I don't want to wait for my life to be over. Yeah. Will it be yes or will it be?
Please.
Sorry.
I hated that show. I hated the song.
Dawson's Creek.
It was so bad.
Oh my god.
It was hard. After that, pretty boy fuckhead James Vanderbeek didn't act in anything anymore now, did he?
No, he did Varsity Blues.
That's about it.
Also, it had Katie Holmes.
Yes, it did.
And Joshua Jackson, who was from the Mighty Ducks.
Yes, it did. After that, he didn't even act in anything.
I think he did The Skulls.
Yeah. And also a shitty-ass werewolf movie, too.
I didn't see the werewolf movie.
It's not that good.
But yeah. UPN continues courting black audiences a little while longer, but the balance of power has shifted. So now we're seeing shows like Smart Guy. Mm-hmm. I love Smart Guy.
Never seen it.
Basically, Tia and Tamara Mowry, they had a younger brother. Mm-hmm. So they were twins. They had a younger brother who got his own show.
Okay.
He was basically playing this kid TJ, and basically he was a black kid that was also a genius. So he was in school, but he was like doing very well, and but he was still like a kid and had a personality. My favorite one was when he has to play chess against a robot, and they're saying like, "Okay, here we go. We are now seated. Everyone is ready for the chess tournament." And his brother and his brother's friend are in the stands, and this is the funny part. He goes, "Before we start, we have everyone sitting down. TJ will be the black pieces." He goes, "Also, how come TJ got to be the black pieces, right? Why can't he play the white pieces? What is this, man?" And he goes, "All right, we will now begin the game. White will go first." And he goes, "Also, how come the white pieces got to go first?" Because that's the rules of chess. In fact, here's the thing. I didn't know till that episode that white moved first.
I never knew that either.
Like, and this is coming from a guy who in 4th grade was in the chess club. I was. For a year.
I couldn't play chess for save my life.
Well, here's the thing. I only joined the chess club because I wanted to join an after-school club, and I couldn't think of one that I really liked in 4th grade. Because there was no sports in elementary school back then.
There weren't.
I don't know if there's any today, but there just wasn't. So I had a chess board, so I thought I'd play chess. Not knowing I fucking suck at chess.
Yeah.
I didn't last very long in that club.
Nope.
I lasted a little while, as long as I could. Then when I realized I suck at this game, then of course there was the Hughleys, which I never saw that sitcom, but I did like D.L. Hughley back then. The Parkers. That was Monique's sitcom.
Yep.
By the end of the 90s, the golden age of black sitcoms is truly over. After that, most black shows were reality TV. You know, Love and Hip Hop, Flavor of Love.
Oh my god.
Flavor of Love.
Flavor Flav.
Yes.
Crackhead.
That's how sad it was. Women fighting to hook up with Flavor Flav.
Guys must be desperate for a meal ticket.
Oh my god, they were desperate for a meal ticket. It was sad.
It was sad.
Yes. Time has also helped heal one of the decade's biggest stars. Martin Lawrence has now made amends with his former castmates, and he's getting his career back on track.
Good for him.
So he did. He made peace with everybody. They actually did a Martin reunion special a few years ago, but everybody was able to bury the hatchet. Martin got his life back together, started making great movies again, and, you know, he realized he was, you know, not going to throw away his career and his life.
Yep, I understand.
And he got himself fixed up. Yep. Meanwhile, the rise of streaming platforms, hungry for content, has driven an industry-wide resurgence in shows controlled by black creatives. right down to the re-imaging of a 90s classic. And of course, that is Bel Air on Peacock.
Hell no.
You don't like it?
I have not watched one episode, and I never will. I don't look like I like it. It doesn't look funny. It doesn't look comedic.
I think it's more dramatic this time around.
Nah.
And basically, it's like an edgier version of The Fresh Prince.
I can see that.
Like, basically, like, if anybody ever complained The Fresh Prince wasn't black enough, this is the show for you then. Because, you know, there's a lot more cursing. There's a lot more... The N-word gets dropped a lot in this. Basically, they talk like black people normally talk. You know, it's more stereotypical than anything else. But a lot of it is still entertaining.
Yeah.
I've seen certain clips of it. There are aspects that are good. But either way, if you want to check it out, check it out.
Check it out.
Maybe someday I will. But he won't, but we'll see. I'll see what I'll do. All right. And that, ladies and gentlemen, will wrap up this week's episode of Boochcast Reviews, Darkside of the 90s. Zach, as always, thank you very much. Taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. Come back next week. We are going to be taking a 180 from what we're doing this week. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be controversial. He's not going to be happy, but here it is. The rise of Rush Limbaugh. We're going to be getting into Rush.
Sexist shit.
We're getting into that next week here on the Boochcast. So make sure you guys follow us on all of our podcast platforms. Link is down in the description box below. Follow us on all social media platforms. Link is down in the description box below. Support the Boochcast. Donate to help us keep the show thriving at anchor.fm/theboochcast/support. That link will be down in the description box below. And of course, as always, hit the subscribe button and ring that bell to be notified so you never miss another episode of Boochcast Reviews Darkside of the 90s, as well as other additional Boochcast YouTube content. We'll talk to you guys next time. Until then, pizza, baby!